But you know what? The Republicans have to get tougher. If we end the filibuster, we can do exactly what we want. We're not going to lose power. The theory is, then we'll do it. But then when they get into power someday, they'll do it. That's true. But you know what?
So you think
we're here right now.
Food assistance funding is supposed to be distributed today, despite the White House saying it actually would not because of the government shutdown. You see, 2 federal judges ruled Friday the Trump administration has to dip into a contingency fund to make this happen. In a social media post, the president said he asked his lawyers to get clarification from the court about how to legally fund SNAP benefits.
5 years since President Trump appeared for an interview on 60 Minutes. A lot has happened since then, not least of which was his political comeback and triumphant return to the White House. On Friday, hours after he touched down from his whirlwind trip to Asia, Mr. Trump agreed to sit down with us for a wide-ranging conversation. It was exactly 1 year to the day since he sued Paramount.
Exclusive interview with 60 Minutes. Norah O'Donnell asked the president about his call to end the filibuster, and Mr. Trump doubled down.
Okay, so you're not going to believe what just happened on live TV. Donald Trump just had maybe the most unhinged interview of his entire political career. And yeah, that's saying something because we've seen a lot. But this one, this CBS 60 Minutes sit down, it was absolute chaos from start to finish. So picture this. November 3rd, 2025, Trump walks into CBS studios for his first 60 Minutes interview since he sued them for $16 million last year. Yeah, $16 million. They settled, cameras are rolling again, and everybody's thinking, okay, maybe this will be civil, right? Maybe he'll play it cool. Nope, not even close. Within minutes, and I mean minutes, Trump is going off on host Norah O'Donnell. He's calling her passive aggressive. He's ranting about fake news. He's bringing up old feuds. And the whole time, millions of Americans are sitting at home wondering how they're going to pay their bills because of the government shutdown that's still dragging on. But we'll get to that in a second because it gets so much worse. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
We should fix it, and we can fix it with the Democrats. All they have to do is let the country open, and we'll fix it. They have to let the country open, and I'll sit down with the Democrats, and we'll fix it. But they have to let the country. And you know what they have to do? All they have to do is raise 5 hands. We don't need all of them.
The interview hasn't even finished airing, and MAGA world is already melting down on social media. And you want to know why? You want to know what set them off? It wasn't policy. It wasn't some big scandal. It was how CBS addressed him. They kept saying Mr. Trump instead of President Trump. That's it. That's what caused a full-scale online meltdown. Thousands of posts, trending topics, people losing their minds because of 2 words. Can you believe this? Come on. We've got real problems happening right now. Food insecurity is through the roof. The shutdown is crippling federal workers. And the biggest controversy coming out of this interview is what title they used. But here's where it gets truly wild. While regular Americans are struggling, and I mean really struggling, Trump threw this massive Halloween party just days before this interview. We're talking champagne fountains, elaborate decorations, the full luxury treatment, the optics, absolutely terrible. Social media tore him apart for it. Even some of his own supporters were like, maybe read the room. So you've got this perfect storm brewing. Trump's walking into CBS already on edge because of the lawsuit. The country's dealing with economic chaos. His polling numbers are starting to slip. And instead of damage control, instead of trying to calm things down and look presidential, he goes on national television and completely loses it. This wasn't just a bad interview. This was what political analysts are calling a masterclass in chaos, and not in a good way. Even people who normally defend Trump were scratching their heads like, what just happened? Why would you do this? Why would you pick this fight right now? The timing couldn't be worse for him. We're seeing cracks in Republican unity. Economic anxiety is at levels we haven't seen in years, and every single media appearance is becoming this huge test of whether Trump can keep it together under pressure. Spoiler alert, based on this interview, he can't. And look, this isn't just about one bad TV moment. This is about a pattern of public meltdowns that keep happening whenever Trump faces tough questions or uncomfortable situations. It's becoming predictable at this point. You can almost set your watch by it. But what makes this particular meltdown so significant is the context around it. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening while the government is shut down, while millions of people are worried about food and rent, while his own party is fracturing over policy disagreements, while his entire second-term agenda is starting to look shaky. The man is supposed to be leading the country right now. That's the job. That's what he signed up for. And instead of projecting strength and stability, instead of showing Americans he's got this under control, he's having televised breakdowns over how a news network addresses him. Are you kidding me? This is what we're dealing with? And the really frustrating part is that Trump had every opportunity to avoid this disaster. He could have declined the interview. He could have insisted on different terms. He could have just stayed calm and answered the questions like a normal person. But no, he walked right into it and then proceeded to have a public meltdown that's now been viewed millions of times. So yeah, buckle up because we're about to break down exactly what happened in that CBS studio. We're going to talk about why Trump sued them in the first place. We're going to look at the actual interview footage and what he said that has everyone talking. We're going to examine why MAGA supporters are so obsessed with titles and respect. And we're going to connect all of this to the bigger picture of what's actually happening in American politics right now. Because trust me, this story is about way more than just one messy interview. This is about credibility. This is about leadership under pressure. This is about whether someone can handle criticism without completely falling apart on camera. And based on what we just saw, the answer is pretty clear. This is the kind of moment that defines a presidency, not because of policy or legislation, but because it reveals character. It reveals how someone handles stress, how they respond to pressure, how they deal with situations they don't like. And right now, Trump's revealing that he can't handle any of it without losing his mind. All right, so let's rewind and talk about how we even got here. Because the history between Trump and CBS is messy, like really messy. Last year, 2024, Trump actually sued CBS, filed a whole lawsuit against them. And it wasn't over something small. He was claiming they edited interviews unfairly, that they made him look bad on purpose, that they had it out for him from the beginning. The legal battle dragged on for months. Lawyers, depositions, the whole 9 yards. Then suddenly, settlement, $16 million. CBS paid it just to make the whole thing go away. Now, whether that was an admission of guilt or just the cost of doing business, that's up for debate. But either way, the lawsuit ended, and apparently both sides agreed Trump could come back on the show. Fast forward to November 3rd, Trump walks in, sits down across from Norah O'Donnell, and you can feel the tension immediately. It's like everybody knows his history. Everybody remembers the lawsuit, and now they're supposed to just have a normal conversation. Yeah, right. O'Donnell starts with pretty standard questions. The government shutdown, economic policy, normal presidential stuff. But Trump's body language, already defensive, already wound up. You can see it in how he's sitting, how he's looking at her. This is not a man who wants to be there. Then she asks about the shutdown, about federal workers missing paychecks, about food banks seeing record demand. And instead of giving a straight answer, Trump pivots, starts talking about how the media never gives him credit, how they always spin everything negative, how CBS specifically has been unfair to him for years. O'Donnell tries to redirect, tries to get back to the actual question, and that's when Trump calls her passive-aggressive on live television during a 60 Minutes interview. He literally says the words, "You're being passive-aggressive with me right now." Can we just pause for a second and appreciate how wild that is? You're the president of the United States. You're on the most respected news program in America, and you're calling the host passive-aggressive? Like, what are we doing here? How is this real life? The interview keeps going, but it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. Every question becomes this battle. Every answer turns into a rant about media bias or fake news or some old grudge. At one point, Trump brings up coverage from years ago, stuff that has nothing to do with current events. He's just venting on national TV. And meanwhile, while this is all playing out on CBS, social media is exploding. Because MAGA supporters watching at home noticed something. CBS graphics kept saying Mr. Trump, lower thirds, captions, all of it. Mr. Trump, not President Trump. Now here's the thing. Trump is currently serving his second term, so calling him Mr. instead of President, it reads as disrespectful, at least to his supporters, and they were not having it. Within an hour of the broadcast, Twitter is on fire. Truth Social is melting down. Facebook groups are going crazy. Thousands of posts about this one detail. People calling for boycotts of CBS, demanding apologies, saying this proves media bias against Trump. And look, I get it. Titles matter in politics. Respect matters. But also, is this really the hill to die on? With everything else happening, the shutdown, the economic problems, the policy debates, this is what we're focusing on? But it gets even more complicated when you factor in Trump's Halloween party, because that happened just 2 days before this interview, November 1st. While federal workers are wondering how they'll make rent, Trump is hosting this massive luxury event, champagne fountains, crystal chandeliers, the works. Photos leaked online almost immediately, and the reaction? Brutal. Even people who normally defend Trump were like, maybe tone it down a bit, maybe don't flaunt extreme wealth while Americans are struggling. The optics were so bad that some Republican strategists started doing damage control before Trump even got to CBS. The contrast couldn't be more stark. On one side, you've got federal employees lining up at food banks, worried about losing their homes, cutting back on groceries and medicine. And on the other side, you've got Trump partying with champagne fountains in a literal ballroom. Come on, how do you not see how bad that looks? So Trump walks into this interview already dealing with backlash about the party, already sensitive about media coverage, already on edge about the lawsuit history, and instead of rising above it, instead of staying calm and presidential, he lets all of it get to him. Political analysts are calling this a huge unforced error, because here's the reality. Trump had an opportunity. He could have gone on 60 Minutes and looked reasonable, empathetic, presidential. He could have talked about shutdown solutions, about helping struggling families, about unity and leadership. Instead, he picked fights, complained about coverage, made everything about himself and his grievances. And in doing so, he reinforced every negative perception people already have about him. Now let's talk about why this matters beyond just one bad interview, because we're seeing cracks in Trump's coalition that weren't there before. Republican lawmakers are getting nervous, donors are asking questions, even conservative media outlets are starting to publish pieces about whether Trump can maintain discipline through his second term. The polling reflects this too. Trump's approval numbers have dropped in the last month. Not a catastrophic fall, but definitely a slide. And when you break down the demographics, he's losing ground with independents, with suburban voters, even with some segments of his base who are starting to wonder if the chaos is worth it. Economic anxiety is driving a lot of this. The shutdown is now in its third week. Food banks are overwhelmed. Federal contractors aren't getting paid. And every day this drags on, more people start questioning whether this administration knows what it's doing. But beyond policy, beyond economics, there's this question of temperament. Can Trump handle pressure without melting down? Can he take tough questions without attacking the interviewer? Can he stay focused on solutions instead of grievances? Based on the CBS interview, a lot of voters are starting to think the answer is no. And that's a problem, because we're not even a year into the second term yet. There's still so much time left, so many challenges coming. And if Trump can't keep it together for a simple news interview, how's he going to handle actual crises? This is what makes the 60 Minutes meltdown more than just entertainment, more than just another Trump moment people will forget next week. This is a credibility problem, a leadership problem, a can this person actually govern problem. And the frustrating part, Trump does this to himself. Nobody forced him to blow up at Norah O'Donnell. Nobody made him rant about media bias instead of answering questions. He chose that response, and now he's dealing with the consequences. Meanwhile, his supporters are still focused on the Mr. versus President thing, still demanding CBS apologize, still missing the bigger picture of what actually happened in that interview and why it's concerning. It's like watching someone focus on a scratch on their car while the engine is on fire. Yeah, okay, the scratch matters, but maybe we should deal with the bigger problem first. Maybe we should acknowledge that the interview was a disaster regardless of what title got used. But that's not how Trump's base operates anymore. Everything is about loyalty. Everything is about defending him no matter what. The actual substance of his actions, secondary at best. What matters is the narrative. What matters is blaming someone else. What matters is never admitting that maybe, just maybe, their guy screwed up. Okay, so let's break down what this all actually means, because there's like layers to this story, multiple things happening at once. And if we don't connect the dots, we miss why this moment is so significant. First, the immediate impact. Trump's CBS interview is being replayed everywhere. Cable news, YouTube, social media clips, millions of views in just a few days. And every time someone watches it, they're seeing a president lose his cool on camera. That's not good for his image. That's not good for public confidence. Republican strategists are privately freaking out about this because they absolutely know that this kind of behavior turns off swing voters. The people Trump needs to maintain support, they don't want drama. They don't want chaos. They want stability and competence. And this interview showed neither. Second, the MAGA meltdown over titles tells us something important about Trump's coalition. These are people so loyal, so invested in defending him, that they'll focus on anything except his actual behavior. The interview content doesn't matter. The policy discussion doesn't matter. All that matters is whether CBS showed proper respect. This is cult of personality stuff. And it's worrying, because healthy democracies need voters who can objectively evaluate their leaders, who can say, yeah, that was a bad interview, my guy messed up there. But instead, we're getting complete denial, complete deflection to side issues. When your immediate response to watching your president have a meltdown is to get angry about what title the network used, that's not political support anymore. That's something else entirely. That's choosing team loyalty over reality. Third, the timing. with the government shutdown. This is crucial because Trump's administration owns this shutdown. Republicans control the presidency. They had opportunities to prevent it. And instead of taking responsibility, instead of working towards solutions, Trump goes on TV and has a meltdown about media coverage. Regular people watching this are thinking, where are your priorities? Why aren't you focused on ending the shutdown? Why aren't you talking about helping families who are struggling? The disconnect between what Americans need and what Trump's focused on is massive right now. Every day the shutdown continues, more damage gets done, not just to federal workers, but to the entire economy. Contractors lose contracts, small businesses lose customers. The ripple effect spread wider and wider, and Trump's using his national platform to complain about journalists. It's maddening. Fourth, the Halloween party controversy, because that's still fresh in everyone's minds. Photos of champagne fountains while food banks run empty. That's Marie Antoinette level tone deafness. And then Trump follows it up with this disastrous interview. It's like he's trying to make his own problems worse. Political opponents are having a field day with this. Democrats are cutting ads right now, showing the party photos, showing interview clips, drawing connections between Trump's luxury lifestyle and his policy failures. It's devastating messaging, and Trump handed it to them on a silver platter. The ads basically write themselves at this point. Split screen, Trump with champagne on one side, food bank lines on the other, Trump yelling at a journalist on one side, federal workers worried about rent on the other. You don't even need narration. The images say everything. Fifth, what this means for Republican unity going forward. Because remember, we're seeing fractures already. Different factions fighting over strategy, over messaging, over policy priorities. And every time Trump has one of these public meltdowns, it makes those fractures worse. Some Republicans want to distance themselves, don't want to be associated with the chaos, but they can't really break away because Trump's base is still powerful within the party. So they're stuck, defending behavior they don't actually support, making excuses they don't really believe. This creates paralysis. Republicans can't move forward with any coherent agenda because they're constantly in damage control mode, constantly explaining away Trump's latest controversy instead of governing. How do you pass legislation when you're spending all your time managing your own president's media disasters? Now let's talk about what comes next, because this story isn't over. The CBS interview is just one data point in a larger pattern, and that pattern is starting to define Trump's second term in ways his team really doesn't want. We're probably going to see more media battles, more lawsuits maybe, more attacks on journalists and outlets. Trump's not going to suddenly change his approach just because this interview went badly. If anything, he's going to double down. That's what he always does. The MAGA base will keep defending him no matter what, keep finding reasons to blame media bias, keep focusing on side issues instead of substance. That's predictable at this point. They've invested too much to back out now. But the persuadable middle, the independents and moderate Republicans who gave Trump a chance, they're watching all of this and having second thoughts. The polling will probably continue sliding unless something major changes. And right now, there's no indication anything will change. The shutdown will eventually end. These things always do. But the damage to Trump's credibility, that sticks around. Every negotiation from here on out, other lawmakers will remember how Trump handled this crisis, how he prioritized grievances over solutions, how he couldn't maintain composure even in a controlled interview setting. And here's the really concerning part. We're not even dealing with a major international crisis yet. No wars, no terrorist attacks, no financial collapse, just normal governing challenges, and Trump's already struggling to maintain composure. What happens when something truly serious occurs? When there's no time for media feuds and public meltdowns? When the country needs actual leadership under pressure? Based on what we've seen, that's an open and very scary question. The CBS interview exposed something important. It showed that Trump hasn't grown into the presidency, hasn't developed the discipline and emotional control that the job requires. He's the same guy who campaigned in 2016, same grievances, same thin skin, same inability to let criticism slide. For his supporters, maybe that's fine. Maybe they like the fighter mentality, the us versus them approach, the constant media battles. Maybe they see it as strength rather than weakness. But for everyone else, for people just trying to live their lives and not worry about politics every single day, it's exhausting. And exhaustion leads to tuning out, which leads to eroding support, which leads to political vulnerability, which leads to more desperation, which leads to more extreme behavior. It's a cycle. And right now, Trump is deep in it. The problem is that Trump seems incapable of breaking this cycle. Every setback makes him more defensive. Every criticism makes him more combative. Every challenge makes him more likely to lash out. And all of that makes the next crisis worse. So yeah, the 60 Minutes meltdown matters, not because of what title CBS used, not because Trump got angry at a journalist, but because it revealed fundamental weaknesses in his leadership style, weaknesses that are going to keep causing problems throughout his term. The question now is whether anything changes, whether Trump's team can convince him to show more restraint, whether he can focus on actual governing instead of media warfare, whether he can rebuild credibility with voters who are starting to have doubts. Based on history, don't hold your breath. Trump's been Trump for decades now. It's who he is, and expecting him to suddenly become someone different, someone more presidential, that's probably wishful thinking at this point. The man is in his late 70s. His patterns are set. His instincts are hardwired. Thinking he's suddenly going to develop impulse control and emotional regulation? Come on. If it hasn't happened by now, it's not happening. But hey, we'll see what happens. Because if there's one thing we know about Trump, he's unpredictable. Maybe he'll surprise everyone and actually learn from this disaster. Maybe he'll come out more focused and disciplined. Or maybe, and this seems way more likely, he'll keep doing exactly what he's been doing. Keep having public meltdowns. Keep making everything about himself. Keep prioritizing ego over governance. Keep turning every interview into a battle and every question into an attack. Either way, buckle up, because this second term is shaping up to be even more chaotic than anyone predicted. In that CBS interview, that's just the beginning of what we're going to see play out over the next few years. The scary part is that we're only months into this term. There's so much time left, so many more interviews, so many more press conferences, so many more opportunities for things to go sideways. And if this is how Trump handles a standard news interview, imagine what's coming next. Stay tuned for more coverage, because trust me, this story is far from over. We're just getting started with the chaos, just getting warmed up with the meltdowns. And every time you think it can't get more bizarre, Trump finds a way to prove you wrong.